Yeah, I don't have to put this on. Yeah, I just assumed they were for stone people. I didn't know that the Teletubbies were like for actual kids. What are you doing? But kids watch the weirdest things.
Yes. Yes, and they will buy everything because my most favorite fun fact about the Teletubbies, which I didn't even learn through work, is that Simon Cowell got his first hit with the Teletubbies. He was like, this song, we should sell this song as a single. And apparently the kids were like, yeah, that's why Baby Shark happened, because there was a precedent.
Hey, they have money and parents just want to give their kids things and make them quiet and put them in front of the TV and make them quiet.
Yeah,
I don't know.
It's called the nag factor. Yeah.
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 I'm glad you're making money off it.
Yeah, I don't know how much I'm making really, but yeah, you know, I'm supporting the ecosystem.
The whole ecosystem. Well,
yeah, how are you doing? You're still all up in the oh my God. Why am I like blanking on this? The Crusades.
Oh, the Inquisition.
There we go.
Yeah. Yes. I'm doing all this Inquisition research and I had to take a break because my Twitter feed just got so anti-Semitic. It got really, really bad. And I was like, what is going on? I was seeing stuff that I hadn't seen spoken about or, you know, except in the most extreme circles. I'm just like, what? No. So I did 2 videos to address what was going on. And I got the worst comments, like thousands of people just dogpiling me in the comments and like sharing and be like, she doesn't know what she's talking about. It overlaps with flat earthers. It overlaps with, the Hebrew Israelites who Kanye is jumping on. Yeah. It's this really weird section of the internet and they're very aggressive. But I mean, at the end of the day, like the more people let that go on their Twitter feed without saying very clearly, like, you are an idiot, you are a jerk, and we should shun you, the more likely it is for, you know, people who are just floating around in that space to gravitate towards it.
Yeah. Yeah.
No regrets.
No, they were good videos. And I just keep thinking like, as well, if all of them found you, then it's probably because they probably have some sort of Discord or something where they're like, we must shut her down, go, you know, because I've seen that apparently that is how the BTS armies work. They have their whole Twitter accounts just being like pointing out tweets and being like, report this, send the reports to the company, send the reports to Twitter. And you're like, oh my God. So
yeah, I got a lot of followers from it, but I also, someone reported my video, my self-harm. Pardon?
No, I was thinking like, yeah, report it. That is the tactic. Yeah. So someone reported a video.
Yeah, an old video I did about the devil lives on Twitter with self-harm. And they were like, you know, are you going to harm yourself? I'm like, no, I'm not going to harm myself. I think this is awful. I think all of this stuff is awful. But that got age restricted. And I guess there's something I can do about that. So yeah, I have haters now.
Welcome to the welcome to the fun land.
Oh, we'll start. Everybody, Monia Ali is back. She is our fandom expert.
I try.
And fandom is just overlapping everybody and everything now because it's all this one ecosphere, the internet ecosphere.
Yes. Yeah. That's what it feels like. That is what it feels like. And all of the franchises, like people will like to dig on Marvel specifically, but it's franchising in general that has like eaten up the entire ecosystem. I feel like the entire entertainment ecosystem, everything is a prequel or a sequel or something else. It's like trying to do the fans' work for them, which means they don't want a fandom. They just want consumers. Like, yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
They're just out to make money. They don't care.
I know, but they're always like, they've got this, I feel like so many of the young, well, I don't know if the young people are getting into it, but I don't know. They're so smart with how they target people and we'll see. At this point, it's all majors. Just watching. It's like watching, being like, all right, let's observe and see where this goes.
You should, absolutely, because all these people, they're all psychology majors. or masters
Yeah.
or more.
Yeah.
They're really like getting into people's heads and trying to figure out how they think so they can better sell them things. Ooh, which I guess you might as well just have a practice, because if you're doing this level of psychological work, you should be helping people.
Well, there are influencers, psychfluencers. I don't know what their shorthand is, but I don't know how trustworthy they are. They've got their little, little meme images, and then it's like, support my work, and you're like, where is this going?
Oh my God. Well, influencers already attract a certain kind of people. So you're in that realm of this person needs attention, and do they want their attention because they're trying to help people, or do they want attention because they need it for some reason, and they'll do anything to get it and keep it, which is like a celebrity, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's why people always like celebrity, is because of that idea of being worshipped and having that influence. And now that that's available, seemingly for everyone, then a lot of more people are getting into it. I feel like activist influencers are the new trend, by which I don't even mean like just activism as a trend, like activist influencers, because I've even seen articles and stuff like that about like, this is what this immigration activist influencer thinks, and I'm like, oh my God, you guys just straight up tacked influencer onto that. Like, not even like this activist recommends this, it's like, no, this is an influencer activist. And with Lizzo bringing out all of the activists at whatever award ceremony she was at, I'm like, this is the type of thing that like warms your heart, just like when all of the Me Too activists were brought to whether it was the Oscars or the Globes or whichever event it was like, oh my God, this is so nice. And then you place it into the ecosystem, you're going, oh, this is going to lead to further things. And even the guys that like keep gluing themselves to art, I feel like they're just trying to get, attention.
I don't know the percentage. Well, they're all trying to get attention. It's attention for what?
Yeah.
Okay, so I was very firmly in that I was going to be a writer, and I was never going to be in front of the camera, and I hated it. But then I realized that everybody in front of the camera, there's something like, not everybody, I would say like 70%. There's something not wrong with them, but their intentions are not pure. And so I was like, well, they're influencing people.
Yeah.
Regardless, the influencers are influencing.
Yeah.
There's nothing you can do about it. And so people are going to go along with whatever they're shown, because as we unfortunately learned, this civilization thing is really malleable.
Yeah.
And you can make people do quite a lot if you repeat the messaging enough. And so I was like, okay, well, I'll have a YouTube, and if there's an audience for it, there's an audience for it. And then that's it.
There is an audience for it. I think your stuff is amazing. So, I mean, but not to be too complimentary or anything.
Thank you. But I see the hole that influencers can go down, because even if they mean the best, they mean the absolute best, but then you have the ad deals, these brand deals, and that means you have to put a video out that week because they have already paid for you to put the video out that week.
Yeah.
So, and there's like a management company that's often in between. And that management company will be like, well, we've got this many ads, and if you want this, you have to put a video out. So a lot of these people, they don't have anything to say. You can tell they don't want to put the video out that week, but they put the video out because they have to. They're contractually obligated to put the video out. So that's one. And then two is you get the influencer going to the comment section to just reinforce the comment section. So like the mob makes its own leader, which then makes its own mob. And it's this weird sort of relationship between, I guess, the fandom or the comment section and the influencer.
Yeah. It's kind of like I started I shouldn't say, it's not like I started noticing it. I saw some articles about how Instagram was being used as a very like specific tool by PR. And it's like, yes, we know this, but then they also went into how in the comment section as well, because now you see the famous people's comments first, and they're like, this is how it works, and now you can see it, and it can be reported on, and it can be used to emphasize points. And as soon as Twitter implemented that thing that says like liked by author or something, I was like, oh dear, I know where this is going. They're gonna be like, the author of this tweet also liked a response that said XYZ, and now it's that's what they meant. They approve of it. They approve of that message.
Yeah.
Basically, is what happens. Yeah.
Twitter is a mess. Twitter has the whole of this Western civilization might end over Twitter. I'm not even exaggerating. Like, we should not have the greatest minds of our generation on Twitter at all, ever. Maybe 10 minutes a day to catch the news. But like, you got to think that 24 hours in a day, some of these people that people are looking at for advice, I'm just, because I'm nosy.
The politicians should not be there. Like, sometimes politicians post things that I'm like, yeah, this is good. Like, they'll talk about the bills that they're presenting or like whatever, stuff like that. But once they start just like being on Twitter, then I'm like, is this what you should be doing? Is this what we want you to represent us for? And that's not to say they can't be on socials, but when they're on like their official socials, like, it's just a bit weird. And the emphasis that people, maybe because I've been through so many sites, the rise and fall of like LiveJournal and everything. I don't know. I just see Twitter. I'm like, yeah, maybe it'll die. Okay. The next thing will come along. But the panic that I'm seeing is like really weird to me. And it's all of those people that are just like, this is the most important site in the world. We need to be on here. We need to save it. And it's like, or just let it die.
Let it die. It's an addiction. These people are addicted to drugs. Like,
yeah,
it is not the most important site in the world.
No.
Well, maybe it is, unfortunately, but like,
yeah, I hope it loses.
Amazon would be.
I hope, oh my God. Yeah, Amazon could easily be. Does Google count as a site or a service?
I guess it's a service. They have a lot of services under Google.
Did you know that there is there is an app, and I actually don't remember what it's called, but it is an app that is supposed to mimic what it's like to be an influencer / popular online. And it kind of looks like Facebook, but you're the only one there, and like endless bots to just like everything you post, to comment about how amazing you are. If you post a photo, it's like, oh my God, that's the greatest photo of all time. So that you keep getting those, dopamine hits, being like, oh my God, yeah, like seeing the numbers climb up. And I'm like, oh my God, this is going to be like a therapeutic tool in like 10 years for the people that are too sad. And then be like, I need my validation.
Yeah, but it's like sugar is to food. It's not real, and it's taking up space, and it's going to rot your teeth, because we see that fame is not good for people. Popularity is often not good for people.
No.
It takes attention away from their family and their friends, and it's like, well, these are the people who are really here for you.
Yeah.
And it comes down, in my opinion, to how many hours there are in a day.
Yes, exactly.
What can you do in your day?
Yeah.
And
I just see like the internet as, and this is just me thinking of how like I grew up. I was super online from a very young age, even though I'm not a Zoomer. Like, they like to say the Zoomers are the first like digital nomads, but I'm like, I was living online at like 12. And it just becomes your community, because that's where you spend time. So those people are your community. So I can see why people have so much attachment, because it becomes like your people, like it's your group. And you might feel more connection to them because all of the feelings and opinions and everything is just on the surface, as opposed to, someone you just walk by on the street that, could be anything, could be anyone, could be a killer, could be one of those truckers, freedom convoy truckers, or it could be, could be anything.
You could be anybody.
Yeah, exactly.
And they only show the best of themselves online. Everybody shows the best of themselves. And so like, you compare that to your friend or your family member, or your sister or whatever, and you see the terrible things about her.
Mm-hmm.
You don't see any terrible things about the people online. So I think this is toxic. I think all of this is incredibly toxic, and very few people have the self-control to not let it ruin them.
No, it feels good. It's like one of those things, and I've been trying to think about this a lot, and I'm trying to figure out like, a lot of things I think about that don't have solutions, because a lot of it would involve like a lot of people doing things, and I'm like, you can't really get people to do stuff, but it's about how we've started to like encourage all of these things that feel good but aren't actually good for you. And we do that all the, like, we humans have a history of doing things that are not good for us, even though we're like, we know that it's not good for, like, we have something wrong with us that we just keep doing things, even though we know it's not good for us. And I don't know that we should be encouraging it necessarily. And well, I don't know how to not encourage it right now.
First off, we should not be feeling good more than like, I think, an hour or two a day. We should just in general just be feeling
miserable,
just content, or just working hard. Whenever I'm feeling good, I'm like, what is this? You
Yeah.
probably had one too many pieces of candy. Why are you feeling so good right now? Very suspicious of that. Yeah. But that's the second part, is that's the only thing that has recently made me believe in original sin. Like there's something inherently wrong with humans where, because we're given everything we want. The internet is just giving us what we want.
Yeah.
We can form whatever room we want. We can use it to go, read more, to train, to make ourselves better people, make ourselves better spouses and better daughters or whatever. We don't. We could and we don't. We're using it to destroy our families and communities.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to bring the mood down.
No, it's I'm usually the one who kills the mood. So I'm just like trying to think of like how, no, that is what happens. It just feels very, I don't know. I've been okay. So I hate to bring this up because I've been like mentioning it to like everyone. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm that annoying person that has like a fixation right now. But I've been listening to old episodes of Loveline. I don't know if you're familiar with Loveline.
Not since I mean, it used to come on the radio.
Yes, exactly. It's an old radio show. So I've been listening to a lot of the old episodes from like the 90s and stuff like that, which is fascinating to hear how things change like day to day. But what I've noticed is also this tendency of people to keep going for what's bad for them because it feels good, because they're attracted to it in a way that's like, it's exciting. Like, I like this, like, but maybe it will work out. And there's somehow this type of optimism where it's like, it's going to work out this time. And they'll be like, don't you see that you're repeating the pattern? Like, this is the third alcoholic you're dating, you're not going to change them. Go to Al-Anon. Maybe that's going to work, figure out your thing. And they're like, oh, but I love him so much. And, and it's like, we can't separate. I saw a tweet that was like, I don't really believe in evolutionary psychology because humans have reason. And I was like, what's crazy about humans is that we have reason and we don't use it. Like, we don't use our reason.
We use it in the most twisted way. We use it after the fact to justify what we wanted to do.
Yes.
Like
That is what's amazing about humans. We can justify it. Yeah.
And this is something, when I'm studying history, I was studying about World War I, and I was like, how could this happen? And it's like the civilization, which is reason, like an extension of reason, was then used to just justify the most primitive urge possible.
Yeah.
Like, you're not using your learning to advance it, using it to kill each other, which you could have done with a rock, but now here we are.
Yeah.
And it's the same way we use our minds to, I can fix them this time because I found a book on alcoholism and now I know all the tools and I just didn't have the right strategy last time and And it's really like, no, you have a subconscious desire to have sex with your father or whatever is in that person's mind, but they have to justify it with all this reason, which is like, you went to school for 20 years for this? Like, come on, girl.
Yeah, it's hard. And I wonder about that. Like, first of all, World War I, all those times before, they didn't have the internet. So I'm like even more amazed at how, I mean, I understand how large groups of people became like, revved up, but without the internet, I'm like, wow, how did they do that exactly? But it makes me think of like, is that really just like a human thing with like the gladiators and then all of those like public executions and stuff like that, that were people would come and, watch. And I'm like, are we really, well, we're animals, I guess. So we do have some savagery in us, but it's just like, I don't know. dark
It's
in a way that I'm
worse.
like, is it worse?
I think
I
it's
don't
worse than
know.
animals. I mean, yes, my cat likes to toy with mice or whatever, but he's not gonna beat up his friend for the
No,
fun of it.
no, no.
That's where it kind of gets a little worse with people. I was like, why are you doing this? And I wonder if it's everyone likes to blame religion so much. And I wonder if it's not religion. Like religion is trying to help us not do this.
Yeah, I think whenever people talk about how like religion is necessary, like I think I mentioned, like I grew up without any type of religion at all. So I feel I'm so out of the loop whenever people talk about like, oh, the history of Christianity or symbols and all that. But I can see that it's used like to try to rein people in. Like, yeah, don't kill people. Come on. And then I guess over centuries, it starts to get narrower and narrower. And, the new people, the new popes or the new whoever is in charge starts to add their own things. And then, crazy rules start to get added and tribalism and all of that comes in. But there seems to be a sort of instinct to create something that like has these rules. And I feel like those communities with rules are now online. And the problem is that we're just so like we're so isolated in the real world. Like we don't really have our neighborhood community. We have our community online and we feel really connected to it because we can feel it. We feel that connection, but it's not doing anything in the real world. Like it's not you're not getting together and like, I don't know, going to a soup kitchen or something. See, I can't even think of things that a community does together. I'm like, I don't know. There's community centers, right? And like libraries and
Yeah.
stuff.
I mean,
What do people do? Like,
my favorite thing, honestly, I always advise people, I'm like, if you don't have a community, you take up a sport, you go to dance
oh yeah,
class.
yeah. That's another, yeah. That's another good one. Yeah, and sport will keep you busy away from the computer and the phone.
Away from the computer. Especially, I'm gonna have to do a video on it. Like dance keeps you in the moment and you can't think about anything except what you're supposed to be doing. Because if you do, you stop doing the dance.
Yeah.
So I always, especially young women, or women in general, and sometimes men, but a lot of men, they don't want to dance. They don't want to go to dance class.
Yeah.
Even though that's where all the pretty girls are.
I know. Although it's funny when you do hear from like the straight guys are like, well, that's where the women are. Of course I took dance. And you're like, well, you caught on to it. Good for you.
Yeah. But I know, and I haven't been in a few weeks, just because things came up. But there's this one dance class I've been going to. I interviewed her one time, Regan.
Okay.
I go to her every week, and it's basically the same people, and it's just familiar. And I don't need everything to be familiar, but like it's nice to have a dance class. We're all struggling towards the same thing, and we're just you're like a group. You're a tribe.
Yeah. Do you think that's why all of these employers are trying to pull this, like, bring your whole self to work and have our communities of the office to try and turn that into like a tribe more than just like, I work here.
I mean, yes, but at the end of the day, it's very toxic
Oh my, yes, it's incredibly toxic, but they don't look at, I don't think they really think about that. They're like, what looks good?
Yeah, because in a tribe, to be exiled from a tribe, you are an Exiled fan.
Yeah.
For the most part, to be exiled, you have to do something really bad. Now, that's not in your case, but like if it's your family's not going to exile you unless you kill another member of your family. Like the stakes.
And even then, humans can deny it. Like that's also something I've seen where it's like, I'm like, wow, you guys are in so much denial because like you cannot accept the reality.
Yeah.
And brains will go like, no, that's not real.
That's not real.
That. Yeah. Oh my God. But yeah, those would be bad things. You might go to jail. You might get like some sort of something. Yeah.
But your company isn't going to do that for you. Your company will toss you aside as soon as they can. It's not a real tribe. But they are mimicking. They're mimicking these same factors. And it's like, oh, please.
They started a while back, obviously, because of the whole thing of like, you need to give 110%. And it's like, you give me like 70%. Why would I give you more than you give me? Like, no, this isn't my life. I'm not going to devote my entire self to you because no, that's not, you don't pay me enough for that.
Yeah, nor should you. I mean, we don't want the whole self at the office.
That's how I feel. I'm like, can't we just focus on just work? Can you do this job? Yes. No. That's all I care about, really. And also be pleasant. Don't be an asshole, but you know, it doesn't have to be. We don't have to. It's that those damn water cooler conversations that used to be about like MASH and Friends. Now it's about, you know, what a fascist Elon Musk is, I guess, you know.
Which I feel bad for the person who's there who doesn't feel he's a fascist, who just, you know, feels like they have to hide themselves at work.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we don't need these conversations at the office. That's my opinion.
It just becomes like, yeah, no, I agree. It's, yeah, it drives me crazy. Like, even just when you look at your Twitter feed and you're like, I don't agree with, or like, you're like, I agree 90%, but I still have some things that I don't agree with, but you see like how strongly everyone else feels. And you're like, what? Did I miss something? I also frequently have to ask someone like, am I missing what's going on Twitter? Give me some background information. Because I'm like, I think I'm only seeing like one corner of things. But it's
something to do with the algorithm. You mentioned it in a recent article that you put out, that the Twitter algorithm, there is an algorithm, and Tumblr doesn't have one. Tumblr is completely user generated.
Yeah, that's right. So the joke is that you indoctrinate yourself on Tumblr. So you think you're better, but you just indoctrinate yourself because you create your own little sphere, and that sphere will feed in like you're, you know, what you're familiar with. And then that creates, I mean, that's the only way I can explain how I fully got so involved, because when I fell into the rabbit hole, like I essentially swapped out my entire dash, which is basically what you're following. Like I went like, I don't want to see this. I only want to see all of this stuff. And it felt very strange, but I was also like, yeah. So it happens. I mean, it happens. And the way too with the anonymous messages where like, it's kind of like the comments, like you were mentioning on Instagram, like if someone sends and also people have gotten caught sending themselves anonymous messages because they want to start a conversation, you know, so it'll be a message like, what do you think about, you know, those blue cars are so shitty. And then it's like, they want to go into the thing. They're like, actually, you know, when you think about it, the color blue, it represents blue, 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 blue. And then, you know, that goes off and has like 10,000 notes and circulates for eternity, because those posts don't disappear, even if the original blog deletes. And then that just goes on and, you know, keeps going.
Well, I mean, there used to be like, I mean, Plato started with dialogues. Like you can talk to yourself. It's a whole, you know, novels are people talking to themselves.
Yeah.
And so these people's energy is being dissipated in Tumblr instead of writing a novel.
Yeah.
Which, or anything, any sort of creative activity. So they're making a creative whirlwind in their own mind, of their own mind, which is reinforced by their own mind.
Yeah.
That's Tumblr.
Well, yeah, it's all in the Tumblr. Oh.
Oh,
smart. No.
I see. I just got that.
But that actually reminds me, I don't think this has happened by the time I wrote my last Tumblr piece, but are you familiar with Goncharov, if that's how you're supposed to pronounce it? No. Goncharov, Goncharov. It's like a weird Russian thing. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right because it's not real. It doesn't exist, but Tumblr has created the plot, everything. They're like, this is a movie from the 70s. Martin Scorsese directed it, starring Robert De Niro. And there's like a fake poster. There are actually fake DVDs now floating around in the real world. There's fan fiction of the fake movie there's like everything. There's like fan art. And then there are some people that are like, I'm going to use, this tag so people understand that it's not real and don't get some sort of weird like break where they're like, I'm so confused about what's going on. But most people aren't doing that. So I'm like, 100% there are people that are going to be like, this is a real movie like in 5 years, and be like, we need to find the archival footage of Goncharov. And especially because I think it's I think his daughter's name is Francesca Scorsese. Yeah, and she apparently sent the thing to him and was like, do you know about this? And he just like played along. He was like, yeah, I did that movie ages ago. So that's online. So where can you find out that it actually is not true unless you manage to find the origin on Tumblr? Like, this is going to be a new Berenstein
Berenstein Bears.
Yeah, that whole thing of like
EIN. I'll go to my grave saying it was EIN.
This is what's going to happen. It's going to be like, no, Goncharov is real, and they might even have fake memories because the plots and the discourse written about it is so detailed. And the funniest thing was when they started to see that like AV Club and whatever started writing about it, they were like, oh no, it's escaped the Tumblr sphere. And it's like, where do you guys think you are? You're in public. Like nothing you're doing is hidden from anyone else. You think they're not going to pick this up? They've been picking that Tumblr for years. So they still believe somehow. And I've emphasized this all the time just because I'm like, it still drives me kind of crazy to see how people who really still think that Tumblr is kind of like a private little blogging sphere. And it's like, it really isn't. Corporate is there. You've been watched. Like not in a like paranoid, like you're being watched, but they have access to the tags. They have access to all of the data from, corporate and all of that. And the new owners are really trying to like milk some money from that user base. And the Tumblrites seem to want to be milked because they're like, this is our only place. And I'm like, oh boy, this is weird.
Attention.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's like a lot of online. I know I've fallen down rabbit holes where I have joined groups I have no business being part of, like Young Earth. And I wasn't in Young Earth, but
Young Earth.
I'm doing this.
Young
I'm actually editing a video now. It's taking me way too long to edit. It should have been out last week, but it's people who think the Earth is 6,000 years old and dinosaurs are fake and fossils are fake. Yeah. Now, I know about dinosaurs. Okay. I believe in dinosaurs. Pretty sure dinosaurs existed, even though I've never met one. I'm like, I know the science behind dinosaurs. Yeah. They're like,
a lot of land before time. Okay.
Dinosaurs are real. But I got into this Young Earth rabbit hole and I joined this Facebook group back when I was on Facebook. And all I would do is just sit there and peer in to what they were telling each other and how it was getting more and more extreme. And then the Christians came in and added, I guess the Christians were there to start with, but then you have other groups coming in and sort of maybe this person is in both groups and they'll find a similarity between Young Earth and this other conspiracy, and they're like, well, you can explain it through this way. And I was just there, just like Tumblr, just like, what are you guys getting up to? What are you doing? Yeah
It's well, they think something is real. There's like there's a crazy online cult, what's her name, Sherry something, that I can definitely recommend for you to look into. Sherry, let me just check. I'm like, it's called, they have these stones. I can see her in my,
Sherry, like the drink, Sherry?
No, like Sherry online cult. Let's see. Is it Sherry Love? No, that can't be. Sherry Shriner and the Alien Reptile Cult. Conspiracy theories about reptilian aliens, and it kind of hit the news because of one murder, but there has been like a few, from what I understand, or like suicides
within the cult.
Because like this was like a couple, and she managed to like the cult leader was like, and this is the kind of thing to me that was like showing that you can be indoctrinated online, because a lot of people will be like, well, cults are diminishing because we're not really hanging out in the real world. I was like, sorry to break this to you, but
It's getting worse.
Capable. Yes.
Yeah.
We're so able to indoctrinate ourselves online. And that's what this thing was basically going on about. And she managed to like convince, like kick people out and be like, she's actually an imposter reptilian that is trying to, you know, take you away from me, so we can't have you here anymore, and blah, blah, blah. Like all of these, you know, mad things. And that's like entirely online. I don't think she ever really met any of the people that were in her cult. Like they sent her lots of money for all of the like stone protections that she had, Oregon stones, which I was like, what is that? Is that a real
Oregon?
Yeah.
Oh, the Oregon energy of the universe?
Well, maybe that's where it came from, but it's like some sort of actual like stone type thing that is like made into hockey pucks basically, and it just looks like a hockey puck, but it's like protective. So people would buy them and be like, put them all over the place and bury them around and being like, I'm buying them to protect you, and like this is going to protect you, except, you know, obviously it doesn't do anything. I mean, maybe it has the power of you know, your own mind and how much you can yourself make happen, but independently there's really nothing there. And it's a pretty crazy ride. And to me, like, yeah, this is a YouTube, like this is a woman who had some sort of radio show and had like a bunch of YouTube videos and managed to like get people completely sucked in.
Love has won. Love has won. Yeah, she was on YouTube, and Teal Swan too.
Yes, Teal Swan is another one that I learned about just randomly by watching an interview with a guy who had been part of the cult, and I was like, oh, this is the first YouTube cult I'm hearing about. I'm like, wow.
She used to be kind of like when I say legit, kind of legit. There was, I want to say like 7 or 8 years ago, there were a lot of these influencers, back to influencers. And influencers can be good and influencers
like spiritual influencers, basically, or
like new age influencers. And she was hanging around with Infinite Waters a lot. Infinite Waters never took the cult route so far. Infinite Waters has stayed pure. So I'm like, okay, at least we got Infinite Waters. But I remember those two doing videos together, and she had the brightest blue eyes. They were captivating. It was like a husky. Like you just like look into them. And she's got this whole backstory, and the backstory was like, oh, that seems a bit much. I'm not into you like I'm into Infinite Waters, who, you know, he's just harmless.
Yeah.
I like him because he's harmless. But Teal Swan, and then she had this really dark stuff that popped up later. When
like tricking, well, not tricking people, but actually like sort of intentionally attracting suicidal people, right? Like a lot of very strange stuff like that is what I heard about, like with the tags and things, where it's like, this is how, like, these are the people that she's seeking out, where I'm like, oh boy.
I mean, there's something to be said for focusing on weak-minded people. And I'm very rude. I'm a very rude person. I don't know how to say it otherwise, but like people who are susceptible to getting dragged into this, because there's some people who you're not going to get them dragged into this, but they're not going to give you money because they don't need you. You need to find somebody who needs something from you. So they have a hole that needs to be filled. So, and then of course she's so beautiful. I mean, you just look at her, she's a very, very beautiful lady. So you also have that. And
yeah, that is one case where it's like, I don't know if it's like a human instinct or just something that the media has pushed somehow, you know, over centuries, that like beauty is pure somehow, that you can't be bad, you know, unless you go to court, because then you're like one of the, like what, like a Black Widow or something. I don't even know. I don't know. But yeah, that is definitely an easy way to lure people in. Do you know if she had contacts in? Because I feel like there has to be something.
I don't know if she had. You know, I just assume that people like, oh my gosh, she's so lucky to have these blue eyes. I never even thought that she would have had contacts, but that makes perfect sense that, you know, she's more deceptive than even I'd given her credit for. The more you look into these cults, the more you're like, and you planned even that. Down to that last thing, you planned even that. I'm rewatching Mad Men
Mm-hmm.
because it's advertising.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's all about hijacking your emotions to get people, to do what you want them to do. It's so similar to cults and cult leaders. Like we need to hijack these people's desire to take care of a beautiful woman or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
And of course, if you are studying psychology and you study psychology to that degree, yeah, you can figure out how to trick people more.
Yeah. And it's also like oh man, why am I blanking right now? I'm having a lot of blanking moments. I'm going to blame the December work schedule for this. But yeah, Mad Men. Oh, yes. So I keep thinking, I'm not sure if you've heard of this theory, the theory of like that there's 3 types of people. There's the sociopaths, the empaths, and the apaths.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense.
Yeah, and like apaths is kind of like the bigger category, but they can be swayed kind of, in whichever direction. And the empaths can be weaponized, because a lot of cult members that are incredibly, dedicated and, possibly even violent think that they're doing something for the greater good. And like, this is worth it because it's for the greater good. And those are often like weaponized empaths. And I'm like, I feel like this is, I mean, it's obviously just a theory. We haven't been able to test all of the human population. But I don't know. Whenever I look at things, I'm like, yeah, it feels accurate. And then you could think of like, yeah, there's probably like all of the CEOs, like Don Draper is clearly, some sort of, because, he made up his, and relatedly, every single person, like all shows and movies essentially are about narcissists and sociopaths, like people with personality disorders. Because if you knew, like I love Gilmore Girls, but if I actually knew Lorelai Gilmore in person, I would probably be like, who the F is this? Like she needs therapy 5 times a day. She needs to calm down. She needs to stop making everything about her. But of course, it's a show about her. And that's the way it's entertaining, because those are the people that make, things happen and the stakes keep climbing. And I don't know if it's selling humans short to say that we're exposed to it so much that we sort of like are internalizing that sort of behavior. But I kind of feel like,
well, TV,
especially with reality TV as well.
Reality TV.
They select the narcissists / they select for those people.
Of course no one else is going to go on it. Who in their right mind is going to go on reality TV? That's crazy.
But the thing is too, like I know someone who applied for, she was obsessed with Big Brother. Yeah, she liked like a bunch of those other MTV shows as well. And yeah, she didn't get selected because she's not crazy enough. And I even know people who, like one of my friends who's a musician and is like an amazing jazz musician, has the most amazing voice, tried out for Idol, like, way back, and didn't get anywhere because like, she said like you could see in the application the kind of questions that they ask. They're looking for like, some sort of, attitude and that sort of narcissism that's going to give good numbers. And a lot of the times, fun fact, a lot of the more recent Idol shows, by which I mean like the last decade, a lot of the people that are in it were directly recruited. Like they didn't apply, they were recruited.
My cousin got on, and maybe she was recruited. She had gone blind from an illness, but she still had a very beautiful voice. And maybe I always suspected this, like they weren't gonna let her win. You know what I mean? Even she was just there as the story of like the overcoming and how beautiful this voice is, despite what had happened to her. And I thought she had, I'm biased. I thought she had the most beautiful voice.
Yeah.
But she didn't get picked. At the end, there was some pop, person that every girl could see themselves with, or the most general audience could see themselves falling in love with. That's the person who got picked because, they're going to sell more albums.
Yeah, and they do still want stories. I remember that the same book that I learned about Simon Cowell's success with Teletubbies talked a lot about the first, I think it's the first Idol season in the US with Kelly Clarkson and stuff like that, and how they would cut things and they'd be like, this is such a good moment in this episode, this guy's journey, blah blah blah, and then everyone's like, but he doesn't get select, like people are going to be like, where did he go? And they were like, no, people aren't going to even remember him by the next episode. We just need something that's going to make them feel something in the moment, and then, you know, next week they'll feel about something else because we have something else going on. And yeah, I mean,
True.
yeah, that's why you
110%
find
true.
people like fans angry about like really small things, because they're the ones that notice and everyone else is like, well, whatever, who cares?
World keeps moving.
Exactly.
It's very scary, but the world will keep moving on. So you can't get caught being, you know, the person on season 3 of American Idol. You got to use that, parlay that to something else and something else and something else. You got to keep moving with the world.
Yeah, it's I find, I mean, it's not that I don't mean to be insulting to people who are, you know, struggling actors and who, you know, have small bit parts, because that's just part of the game. But there's something really weird, and I would blame the publicists for this. Like when they write the bios and, you know, like XYZ appeared on Mad Men, and you're like, oh, you were on Mad Men? And it's like, yeah, you know, like I was that one person that like Don, you know, hooked up with that one episode. You know, you're like,
That's a good part though.
yeah, oh
For
yeah,
an actress,
please.
That's a good part.
Oh yeah, yeah. But you know, 10 years later, if it hasn't really gone anywhere, it's a bit like it's like, don't call that back, publicists. Don't do that. That's just awkward. And they do that these days, and I keep seeing it now, unfortunately, with people who pass away, and the headlines are like, you know, whatever actor, and you're like, really? And you're like, oh wow, okay, they were in these episodes. And I'm like, this is still really sad to me, and I don't like that you wrote the headline like that. But that's my own thing.
There's so many more celebrities now too, just because there's so much content. So
Yeah.
when we think that so many more people are dying, and I don't know if that's true or if we just have 10 times more celebrities.
We also have so many more people in general, right? Isn't there like the most people that there's
Yeah, I mean, it's the most people there's ever been. You know, the population is the most.
Yeah.
We're kind of hanging on relatively steady in the West. Maybe we could be increasing our population more, but just with us being so interconnected, you know, and there being so many more platforms, there seems like there's so many more people, and they're in your face.
Yeah.
They're in your face on Twitter. They're in your face on Instagram. They're just everywhere. And then it seems like everybody's moving to a city. So all these cities seem to have so many more people in it, but they're leaving the countryside. So we're kind of a redistribution. But yeah, there are somewhat more people. There was a baby boom around the millennials. So there was a slight uptick in the baby boom, but our birth numbers could be doing better.
Okay. Yeah, I've only seen the really scared people talking about, you know, why won't the women have children? It's like, it's so interesting that you would frame it that way. Like, what?
It hurts. Can we start with like, it hurts a lot. And then you have the option. Now, you know, we're obviously thinking, you know, we just got married, we're thinking and all this other stuff. But in my mind, the first thing I can think of is that's going to hurt a whole lot.
But this is also where our dumb humanity helps us, right? Because I feel like that's part of the whole thing, is like, once you have the baby, like all of those endorphins kick in, and that's where you like forget all about it. And that's why people will have multiple children, because they're like, no, I want more. It's like, it's gonna hurt. It's like, oh, well, I'll forget about it.
I will forget about it. I know I'm going to forget about it, but it's still going to be the day. Like, could you imagine getting a root canal that the Novocaine only works half or a fraction, or there's no Novocaine? Like, come on. Like,
no, it's like, that's a history that I don't know if I haven't watched all of your videos, so maybe you have covered this, but the history of like childbirth medicine is like insane. Where I'm like, oh my God. There's like some, like, did you know that the chainsaw was created for childbirth, basically?
really?
Yeah.
How? Why? Oh no.
Yeah, I don't.
I got like Texas Chainsaw Massacre in my
Yeah,
head
I mean,
now.
they wouldn't be that way, obviously, because this was pre all of that, but they were like hand cranked saws, and they would just, they would have to, take the bait. They needed more space, Mhm. Um, and that the medical term for that is symphysiotomy, which is a great, long word for it. And I learned that they did it up until like the 80s in Ireland. And like, so there's still women in Ireland that are trying to get some sort of like, some acknowledgement, that what they did was effed up, and there's like silence. I also learned about something called lightning crotch. And that is the only word there is for it, because there's no medical term for it. Because when it happens, the doctors are like, oh, well, it's lightning crotch. I don't know. We don't have an answer for that.
What is that? Is something
Well,
else I got to worry about?
Well, I think apparently it's something that happens towards the end of the pregnancy, and it's kind of looks just like general, I guess it feels like lightning or just like fire or something, it like in the pelvis area. And it's apparently just like that just happens, possibly because of the way that, the uterus is pressing towards nerves or something. I mean, they don't have an answer. So I can't really say, but it's like clearly it has something to do with like something, because it's something that a lot of pregnant women experience. But I was like, oh wow, yeah, no, I had no idea about this.
Man,
And of course,
if
my
those
favorite, the husband
Cool.
stitch.
Oh yeah, I've heard about that. Ugh, oh my God. I can't believe a hospital these day and age would still do something like that.
It's I don't know.
Especially if you screw up and get pregnant again, and then you have to like, no, please. I want a baby that's like 4 years old. I want my child. I want my child, but I want him at 4. Or her. I want him at 4. I don't. The childbirth I can skip. The staying up I can skip.
Yeah, I was gonna say, is there a reason 4 specifically, not 3? Because I know terrible twos is a thing, but is there a reason why it's 4 and not?
I gotta be able to sit and eat at the table.
Oh, okay.
Like I need to be able to deal with you.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, there's just gonna be a lot of years. Do you want kids? I didn't ask if you wanted kids.
No, I don't want kids. My mom was a midwife though.
Is that why?
Not really. I feel like I raised my brothers, so I'm like, been there, done that, did not do so well. So I'm like, all right, that's all done with. But yeah, she's like, yeah, it's a lot of work. Never have said like, I don't want kids. Like, please don't pester me about it. And she's like, no, I get that. I get it. And it's like, okay. But she would have horror stories from Montreal where she said that like in the 80s, a lot of because they were in the birthing rooms, but then there would have to be a doctor there to sort of like supervise. And she said like sometimes the doctors would just go from room to room and just try to like break the water and like feel how distended the cervix is. And they would just have their sleeves, like there was just like nothing, no matter, like no hygiene. And I'm just like, ooh. But that's the 80s, I guess.
That's the 80s.
Right? That's not.
My mom was crazy. My mom had all of us with no drugs. She was like one of these hippie people.
Wow.
She had
well, then maybe you're all set. Maybe you have some sort of like,
no, that's
psychological.
insane.
Well, I would agree with that. But some women do it. Yeah.
No, she was a hippie, and she had my brother at home, and it barely worked out. And
Wow.
it's just like, we have hospitals. It was the 80s, but we have hospitals. You can go to a hospital. You don't have to do it in the attic.
Feels like a lot more of a trend from the last, like, I don't know, 20 years. I feel like that's when it really took off. But I don't know. It would feel like way too much cleaning to do afterwards. I'm like, it's just like a lot of work.
I mean, I know they used to do it all the time. Frontier times.
Yeah, and the women died.
Yeah, they died. Something could go wrong. Like, no.
Yeah, it's I don't know, but it's also like, I don't know, it's pretty crazy. It's one of those things that fascinate me, the way it all works. And what I learned as well from Loveline, and so I'm going to be writing a thing that was like lessons from Loveline, because I feel like I'm learning a lot of stuff and being reminded of things, is the 90s. And this is like from the mid 90s on, whenever it started, how the US was so hell-bent on working against the morning after pill.
Hmm.
Because they were like, this is an abortion pill. We need to stop it. Like Walmart refused to sell it. And like, there was this whole thing. And like Dr. Drew, who's the doctor on the show, was like so hardcore pro morning after pill. And he was like, I don't understand. The science doesn't support any of their claims. Like, it works exactly the same as the regular birth control pill. And nowadays, I think if like you can even use like the regular birth control pill, like just like, you know, stack up more of them, because it's the same thing. It's the exact same thing. It is not, it has nothing to do with, you know, like aborting a pregnancy or stopping, you know, implantation, which is what, you know, they're always so scared about. And that's why it only has a 70% success rate, because if you're pregnant, guess what? You're SOL. Like, you're pregnant.
You know what? Facts never stopped the story before.
No,
The story's
no.
gonna go.
I know. But I think it's really, and I've noticed it a bit here and there, and I feel like a lot of these people really just want to get rid of contraception altogether. And there are some moments where they'll say it, and I'm like, oh my God, you just like straight up just said it. And I don't even know, like they just want there to be a punishment, I guess. Like, if you have sex, you must risk. Like, I just can't even think of like, yeah, it's I don't know. I would say that has no chance of succeeding, but you know, the old love line had them talking about how Roe v. Wade would never be, you know, so it's like, well, who knows? Who knows? Who knows? I will not make any claims.
Yeah, from a strictly societal point of view, if you're just like, the more power a society has, the more people it has. And the more well-educated people it has, and the more people who can contribute it has. So maybe they are nationalists, like really fervent nationalists, and they're like, we have to make more people, be fruitful and multiply. We need more people. It seems as though they're falling behind in educating the people that they have already. That's just my observation. So, you know, it would seem that if they did a better job educating the people they have right now, they wouldn't need more people. They wouldn't just need to throw bodies at the problem. But if I'm going to put myself in their frame of mind,
yeah,
that's what I would think that they want. Or they do want a punishment for sex. Maybe they do.
Well, maybe it's both as well. I don't know. But it's so like, it's interesting that you say that, like they just want more people. And it's true. Like, I feel like the US has been much more vocal in general about more people, whereas I'm not sure how much you've been following this, but Canada is like pushing hard on the euthanasia bandwagon.
Yes.
Yeah.
I didn't want to ask you about it. I didn't want to put you on the spot or anything, but 10,000 assisted suicides last year.
Yeah, you can put me on the spot all you want. I'll be honest regardless. Yeah, I looked at the statistics because they have the official ones, and I looked at this like before recently, even because I just wanted to see what the reasonings were. And like a lot of it is like, you know, chronic illness and stuff like that. But there's also a column, and it was like 13% were like saying loneliness and stuff like that. And I'm like, you should not be approving people to die because they're lonely, or, you know, like stuff like that. I'm like, do we not have a solution? And I think as well is that they sort of removed, I think they expanded the people that it can apply for. And now we're seeing a lot of really scary situations where people are being, you know, recommended euthanasia. Yeah.
The
which happened with
paraplegic.
like, yeah. And you're just like, what? Like, what are you even? And the crazy thing to me is as well, because the Netherlands has euthanasia as well, but they apparently have a pretty rigorous screening system, and people will get turned away because they're like, no.
I should hope so.
Yeah,
of course.
Yeah, but I don't know that there's
final
really
decision.
Yeah, I don't even know. Or it's like someone who's like, well, I either I'm homeless or I don't have anywhere to go. It's like, well, have you considered medically assisted suicide? It's like,
next year they're gonna allow it for mental illness as well. They open it up for mental illness, which well, what does that mean?
At what point do you, and also That's just, I mean, it just makes me think of that, I don't know if it was like involuntary manslaughter as the sentence she got, but like the case, Michelle Carter's case, the girl who was texting her friend and he killed himself, and she was like, get back in the car and like stuff like that. So she was convicted for like encouraging him, essentially.
Being evil. She was pretty evil. That
I
was
feel like
evil.
they
Those
were
texts were
both,
evil.
I mean, they were both like really bad. I'm like, you
Yeah.
guys should have been separated right away. And this is also the thing with online, is you get into your spirals and your relationships and like no one else sees it. Like you are so, and it can feel as present and real and urgent. And I've been there. I've had, and I think that's what I try to be as honest about, is, you know, how insane I got from fandom and that it really did affect me. And you know, if something would happen online and I would like immediately start to feel like, oh my God, things are happening. I'm so anxious. I have to go in a corner and cry now because I can't believe things are going on that I can't control, first of all, and is like completely out of my, like, it's not even my reality, but it feels so present, you know?
You catch a
So
fever. It's a fever.
oh my God, yeah. Yeah.
It's something else. It's for people who don't remember, the Michelle Carter case was out of Boston, correct? Or Massachusetts?
Possibly. I just know that I watched the HBO documentary on it, but it was quite some time ago. But
And
yeah,
he had
possibly.
said he was going to kill himself, and she said he was offering encouragement
Yeah.
because he wanted to kill himself, and the judge was like, I don't think so.
Yeah.
You know, manslaughter. She was also very attractive.
Yeah.
Very attractive girl.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's now a movie or a series. Oh, yes, actually, now that you mentioned, where was it from? Plainville, I think, Ohio.
Was it Ohio?
Well, where is Plainville? Is
I
Plainville
think
in
there's a
Ohio, or is
Plainville
it in Ohio?
everywhere. It's like
Oh, really? How dare
Springfield.
you, America? You keep repeating these names. Yeah, because it's called The Girl from Plainville, and I believe it's not Chloe Grace Moretz. It's not Dakota Fanning. What's the other Fanning? Elle Fanning, maybe?
Oh, the younger Fanning.
Yeah, it might be the younger Fanning that plays her. But it's like The Girl from Plainville, I believe is the title.
Oh no, it is Massachusetts. Maybe maybe it's Plainfield, Mass. Because there's a Plainville like in almost every state. That's a joke from The Simpsons. That's a Springfield. You don't know which one it is.
Yeah.
Dartmouth, Mass. I grew up in Massachusetts. I can recognize a trashy masshole accent a mile away. Because I was like, I know.
I don't know why Ohio is what felt so natural after Plainville, but yeah, that's where my mind went.
They might set it in Ohio because I was born in Massachusetts. I can say this.
Yeah.
You don't want to hear a Boston accent for like 5 seasons.
What?
You don't want to hear that accent for 5 seasons in a row. Ohio, that's a much better accent. You know, it's a more general audience.
Oh man. Yeah, the fact, I just remembered that they made a show about it, which I don't even know if it's 2 episodes or 4. Like it's a limited series or whatever they're calling those nowadays. But it was part of a flood of all of these shows based on these crimes that I'm like, are we really doing this? Like, I get that this is all public record and you're legally allowed to do this, but I'm also like, it's leaning in really heavily. And I think we noticed that with Dahmer, the way that kind of blew up. And I mean, come on, you don't cast Evan Peters if you don't want people to be like, you know, into him.
Well, people love these serial killers anyway. They're women or, you know, Dahmer, maybe men who approach them in prison and they're like, you're misunderstood. I can fix them. That whole thing.
Yeah.
I don't know why there are women who go after these serial killers, but there's also a lot of, pardon?
No. Keep talking because I'm just thinking on that as well. Yeah.
Yeah. There's also this whole subsection of people, and we just found out about it in the past 10 years, that love to hear about murders.
Mm-hmm.
And I love a good horror movie. Horror movies are fine, but like these people are having fun with the death of someone's kid. And it's like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
How can you do this? And of course, in Mad Men, there's that, the episode with the nurses. Remember there was the nurse murder and I think it was like 67. where that killer came in and killed like 8 or 9 nurses. There was 9 and 1 got away. He killed 8 of them one by one.
Oh wow. No, I
And
don't
they
remember that.
don't even. After this discussion, just put it all out of your head completely.
Yeah. Okay.
And
okay.
so that was one of the first instances, early instances, where the whole country was kind of having this weird sexual fetish kick off of like a true crime thing. And they discussed it on Mad Men. And one of my favorite characters, Ginsburg, is like, what is the matter with you people? Why are you looking at these pictures? Like,
he's great. He's great. Yeah.
Yeah. What are you doing? But people, you wouldn't even suspect it. They love true crime.
Yeah, it's and I mean, this is part of the thing where I'm like, well, there's no stopping it. It's also legal. Like, is it ethical? Probably not, but that's never stopped production companies from, trying to make more money. But then it turns into like, yeah, these people are now characters, and it's all just kind of messy in a way that is, I don't really have the words for it, really, but it's like, it's not great. But the
It's
thing
unkind.
yeah, no, yes, that's a good way of seeing it. It really shows how capable we are of just flattening things and then still thinking that we know what's going on, like in the real case or whatever. Because I did watch some of the staircase because I was like kind of curious about what was going to go on in there. And even in that, they sort of expanded it into the family members and had them discuss how hard it was that there was so much attention on them. And I'm like, I agree, but also you put that in the fictionalized version of this tragedy now being sold. I'm like, this is still like just a bit too, too involved. But it's like, yeah, the other doing it, I'm bringing up leveling again, but one of the really other like insane things is the amount of times that someone has, like, someone they know, like their boyfriend, husband, whatever, is in jail or something, prison. There's a difference. Oh, I disappeared
A little bit. Come back.
What is happening? Hello?
I can hear you. I can't see you.
It looks like wow, I've
Now
never experienced this before. Oh,
there you go. You're back.
like, what happened? I'm like, this is too eerie while we discuss like creepy things.
Love line.
Yes. Oh man, yeah, feel free to cut out all love line mentions.
No,
It's
like, all going in. It's every bit of love line is going in. I love it.
What I found so interesting is they'll be like, first of all, they somehow manage to guess oftentimes, like, when is he getting out? And they'll be like, oh, well, he gets out in like X amount of time. And it's like, you didn't even tell us he was in jail, but we guessed it. But they'll be like, what's he in for? And the number one answer is parole violation. So they can't even go, and then it's like, oh yes, we're all born on parole. And, we just never know when we might violate parole and get thrown in jail. It's really a risky system. Because they'll be like, yeah, so he was on parole. And they're like, yeah, what was he on parole for? It's like, oh, well, like he was with some friends and then they like did a thing. And it's like, blah, like all of the weirdest, they have all the excuses. And it's like, oh, well, he went into the slammer because he violated parole by having a beer. And they're like, it's just a beer. How dare they? And then the whole point is like, well, if that's part of your parole, you should damn right, make sure that like, don't have a beer in public then, because you are going to go to jail if you violate your parole. Like, why?
Women like
parole violation.
And I guess it goes back forever. Like, they'll look the other way on a murder. Women will. You can have a few bodies, and a lot of times women will be like, that is sexy. But God forbid you be 5'4".
I don't mind 5'4". Just don't be a killer. Yeah.
Don't be a killer. You have to be either a killer or 5'4". You can't be both 5'4" and a killer if you want to date Monia.
Oh no.
I'm kidding. Don't be a killer. Don't be a killer.
But that is like that is one of the things that I think about, because it reminds me of conspiracies, the way that you will get so honed in on something and really, really believe it. And there's this case where it's her name is Victoria Sillers or Killiers. I don't know how to pronounce this name with a C. Starts like Killian, that actor is pronounced Killian, even though it's like Cillian. Yeah. So I don't know if it's Hilliers or Cilliers. But this is one of those cases that to me is like the best, like an example of that, where she almost got killed by her husband and she just like refused to believe that he did it. And even at the trial, she was like, no, he loves me. He would never have done that. And it's like now, X amount of years later, she's like, no, I was completely brainwashed. But, that lasted for however long and entailed that she, would be putting herself in danger because of, that strong belief, these beliefs that we feel, that I've talked about before, how when you feel like you know something, you're like, how can anyone convince you otherwise? Because you feel it,
It's
in your
like they're on
body that something
drugs.
is true. Yeah.
Yeah. Like they're under the influence of something.
Yeah. And it's like, how do you reach? Yeah, I don't know. I'm always asking, I'm like, how do you reach them? How can you start some sort of dialogue that kind of, cracks things open? But I don't have an answer. I'm just like looking at, these cases of people just being like so, and I'm like, well, I was like that too. So I can't really, and I don't know.
I mean, we've all been in a relationship, at least one relationship, where we've overlooked red flags, or even if it's, could be your father, it could be your uncle or your brother. And you're just like, no, he wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
He wouldn't.
Yeah.
I don't know why I'm always making it a man, but like they wouldn't do this. They just wouldn't. But it's like, yeah, they would. You're just projecting your goodness on them. Of course they would.
Yeah.
And I don't think everybody who does this are sociopaths, but I think that if you know how to manipulate people and you're willing to do it and act on it in your life, you can go very, very far. All these cult leaders are just putting their knowledge of manipulating others into action, which is just evil incarnate. That's like the definition of evil. You're not supposed to manipulate others. It's even like Wiccans are like, yeah, we know the difference between different kinds of magic. If you put it on somebody, that's bad. And if doing it for yourself, then that's okay. It's whatever. So throughout these religious, they know the difference. But now we use psychology. And I forgot who it was who said that, psychology is like our religion now, and it's actually quite dangerous. But if you can then use this and manipulate other people, well, you're a cult leader.
Yeah.
Or you can be a cult leader of your own family. So a lot of people, the cult is only, 10 people and it's their family.
Yeah, I thought that was so interesting. And I know people are probably really tired of cult stuff because it's like everywhere now in all of the shows. But I just find that framing really helpful to understand. And I think that's all these things are. Like whenever words start, taking off, I'm like, it's just about a framing of an issue. So to me, it does help to think of like the cult, like, yeah, it's a family cult. Or sometimes they call like abusive relationships one-on-one cults, because like it's like they're so convinced that like, no, but I did something wrong. He's just trying to show me like what's like, like if you watch the clip of Gabby Petito when she's arrested, when they stop them, like she's just like taking the blame for everything, and it's just like, I just get so anxious, and sometimes I like, oh yeah, I'm just so like, oh yeah, no, he didn't do anything. I was just, all this stuff. And meanwhile, he's like, yeah, she's crazy. Like, and you're like, oh boy.
Yeah, that didn't end very well for her.
No,
and it doesn't end well for the women.
No,
it doesn't, because we're the ones who have to have the babies. So even if you make it free and clear of this psychopath that you got involved in, there's a chance you have a baby.
Yeah.
And then he has a reason to come after you for however many more years.
Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty scary. Although I read one of the books from, and I'm blanking on her name now, but I can find it. It's the first woman who left the FLDS and managed to get her children with her, and like actually get like custody. And that was 8 children that she managed to like escape with. And I'm like, wow. So sometimes you're like, you know what? Motherhood can make some women like real badass, because they're like, no, I have to protect these, because I do think like in those cults, they want the women to have a lot of children so that they're sort of stuck. But sometimes those kids are the exact reason why they're like, no, we have to get out because you guys deserve better. And, if this woman managed to escape with 8 children, one who was, very like chronically ill and needed like a breathing machine, I'm like, okay, you know what? I need to stop complaining and I can probably do some stuff because wow.
Yeah, the fact that she had those 8 children already, she's stronger than me. Because
Oh my
she
God.
wasn't, she didn't have like, drugs during most of them. I shouldn't say
No.
all of them, but a lot of them don't have drugs when they're giving birth, and they
Yeah.
just
And they're
do
supposed
it.
to have all of the wives there at the birth. It's supposed to be like a whole event. And she was saying like it was like so humiliating and she didn't want to do that. And she tried to like get away with like not inviting anyone. And they'd be like, why are you misbehaving? Because it's like, we're supposed to all be here for the, and it's like, oh boy.
So this kind of brings me to my next point that I wanted to talk to you about. The femcel movement, because that's big on Tumblr now too, or there, from what I read, which is limited, that a lot of way too pretty girls are hashtagging femcel on Tumblr, and it's making actual femcels mad about it.
Yeah, I mean, I still don't quite know what the actual requirement is to be a femcel, because I kind of always thought incel, I mean, I know incel is like a very dirty word, but to me, I'm like, but is that not the word you would use if you were involuntarily celibate? But no, it's, yeah, femcel, if you're just like, you're looking for, and you're like, I'm not hot enough for them, right? That's kind of the attitude. And then the hot women are like, no.
Yeah, I've gotten
The expert in this is Default Friend, I will say.
Default
she's
Friend.
the expert on, because I think she wrote like a lot of the early stuff.
Yeah, I've been reading a couple things. One is exactly what you said, that these are girls who don't think that they're very pretty, even though they're probably prettier than they think they are. And then the other side is just women who are not going to settle for just any old relationship.
Yeah.
Because they can work their own job now. They don't need to be abused, and they don't need to take care of another child. So why would they get into a relationship that offers them nothing?
Yeah.
So they're involuntary celibate in that it's not worth the effort for them.
Yeah, see, that I understand more, and I definitely feel like that is what a lot of the anger from, I don't know what to call them, because it's not men, but it's like a specific subset of the ones that are saying like, women need to start marrying, and all of that stuff, where you're like, but what are you offering? Like, what you're saying, like, why won't they date me? And it's like, well, what are you giving? Like, are you going to cook too? Are you going to clean as well? Are you going to be a present father, not a babysitter, who's like, I babysat my child. It's like, no, like an actual present dad. Or are you looking for a maid? Like, what is it you want exactly? No, sorry, women are not bending over backwards to be maids for you. And that is actually, what's interesting too, is I wonder, I have thought about whether this is part of the reason why there's so many, I guess they call them mail order brides or whatever, right? When I lived in Sweden, what happened is that the old men would go to the Philippines and they would bring back like a nice, young Filipino woman, to take care of them.
Very beautiful.
Because they haven't been ruined by feminism, you're like, be more direct about what you want. Yeah, I see. Yeah.
No, and they can purchase them. Well, not purchase, but I mean, she has no other options. She's probably on a visa because she's with you.
Yeah.
She doesn't have the job skills to make it in this entirely new environment.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like, it's kind of gross. And I know I've heard stories about, like, there's someone I know's dad was like, he was tricked by a Ukrainian woman that, he was supposed to marry, but as soon as she got her papers, she was like, see you later. And I'm like, good for her though. What do you expect? Like, obviously they're trying to get a better life, and I'm sorry, you weren't. Yeah, I don't
want to be married to you. You can't be married to someone you don't want to be married to for that long. Now, I get arranged marriages. That's sort of like, it's mutually beneficial. We don't want to be alone, and we're going to work together. But I feel that works if you have similar values. Like you have similar religion, you have similar life goals, and one of those goals is raising a family and having a traditional lifestyle. I have nothing against that, and I encourage it for anybody that works for. But
Yeah.
to just go and purchase a person or make an arrangement with a person so they can have a better life and then expect them not to.
Yeah,
I
and
don't
it's
understand
also
it.
like I just find the way that it works is inherently must be very isolating, and I wonder how many of these relationships are even necessarily healthy because of like, yeah, it's someone who's disconnected from the entire community, and like you're presumably the only thing that they have in this new country, and you could, you know, limit things for them, and it's like, ooh, I don't like that level of control that it seems necessary to have. But
Which
yeah, I
is
don't know.
what men had over women for thousands and thousands of years.
Yeah.
It's like recent that we've gotten away from that entirely, and very grateful that we have, because, you know, you go back even 100 years, 200 years, and it's like, well, you marry this person because that's the person you're supposed to marry, and you make it work, even if he's an alcoholic and abusive, and
Yeah, you can't
that's it.
get divorced.
There's no
And
divorce.
also maybe if you're in the time of the convents, like he'll just send you off to a convent, you know, because he's like, I'm tired of you. Like,
I would
like,
rather be at a convent. I'm going to be perfectly honest. Just the way I like to live my lifestyle, I think I'd rather be at a convent than married to someone. And imagine like he's dumb. Like imagine he's dumb. Could you even think about that?
he probably is.
I know. I'd rather be at a convent. Like,
Yeah, history is like, oh man. Yeah, so femcels. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of I was reading, it's not as exciting as your history because you're getting some like real deep cuts and a lot of knowledge, but I was reading Elizabeth Wurtzel's book Bitch, which is about, she kind of covers a lot of like well, it's like saying about difficult women, but it's like these women that were in the media, and sort of she sort of looks at all of these the way that, like, how does that work? Can you be like, it doesn't really, like, things haven't worked that well because, like, yeah, women were told you can do all this on your own, and you're like, oh my god, yeah, but the men were like, yeah, but we don't want that. Like, we want you to take care of us. Like, what's happening? And that's part, and this is a book from like the late 90s as well, so it's like from back in those days, and it was fascinating because it covers Nicole Brown and the young Amy Fisher, I think her name is, the 16-year-old who shot
the babysitter.
maybe she was a babysitter. I just know that she was having an affair with a guy. She was having an affair. I mean, she wasn't married. Like, he was married, and, you know, was having an affair with her, a 16-year-old. So like, I don't know how consensual that can be in the first place. And then how she shot his wife, who survived, but and that whole thing, and how she became like this vixen who, like, you know, was a prostitute, but it's like he was pimping her out, you know, to his friends. And it's like, and he gave her did he give her herpes or like some other type of, like,
I'm sure he gave
like,
her something.
like just when you look at the background and you're like, this just sounds like an insanely like abusive situation altogether. And like, should she have shot someone? No. But it's hard to sort of look at. I mean, yeah, the justice system is not very kind to even teenage girls who sort of, you know, go crazy.
It's not going to be kind to prostitutes.
No, it's not.
Not going to.
It's never. When you're mentioning the nurse killer and how that was such a big thing in Mad Men, that reminded me of they called him like the preppy killer, and I think that was the 80s, and that was one of the first apparently sex gone wrong cases that they tried like that tactic. And they didn't succeed, thankfully, but it was like a case where this guy is like, you know, 6 foot, and this little girl was like, he was like, this little, she tried to rape me, so I had to like somehow accidentally toss her across the back, and like, you know, like, and you're like, what is happening, what's going on? And you're like, this is not does none of this make sense? But what I thought was so interesting as well is that the prosecutor for that case is the same prosecutor who prosecuted the Central Park Five. And then you have to look at like, man, these people really have such a wide track record that in one case, they can like, wow, you successfully got this guy away. And like, but in this case, oh boy, like you did not behave particularly well in this case.
That's
just like,
a position with a lot of power, prosecutor. They have a lot, and we don't really think about it. We like to say the criminal justice system this, the criminal justice system that, but when you talk about individuals who are making decisions of should we go hard, should we go light, you know, and there's a downside to both, and you're going to see, you know, the same person, a hero in one story and a villain in another. I mean, you go back to the Inquisition, it's like that. Like the Inquisition, you wouldn't think about it, you know, you think they're all entirely evil, but then you hear stories of actually they were the good guys. Actually, they came and put a stop to the madness or the hysteria that was going on. But then a few years later, they did some awful thing too.
Yeah. I think that's always something to remember. And I try to remind myself of this. And as you were saying, like Teal Swan was, you know, seemingly fine, however many years ago, and then sort of spiraled. And it's sort of like, cults don't just exist, you know, from the beginning. It can be a perfectly normal group of people that starts to become toxic. And then, you know, the people that sort of aren't into it start to leave. And then suddenly you only have the true believers left. And it becomes this, you know, super toxic situation where everyone is, you know, so into it. And, you know, you see these journeys. Like, I don't know that anyone could have looked at Teal Swan 10 years ago and been like, she's going to become this. Or do you think someone could have guessed?
My friend, I had a really good friend at the time, and we were talking about it because we were just talking, you know. I'm like, yeah, Infinite Waters, he's, you know, he's not really saying anything, but he's got a soothing voice and whatever. So we're talking about Infinite Waters, and I said, did you see the episode when Teal Swan came on? And she said, I don't like her. There's something about her backstory, and there's something about her that just automatically put her off. Now, I don't know if I was immediately put off by Teal Swan or I just wasn't intrigued enough to follow up. But my friend definitely said, she's like, I don't like it. Whatever that is, I don't like it. And, you know, I think it was like maybe 5 or 6 years later where it was like, yeah, this lady she likes to have power over people. She liked to have power over people. She was encouraging suicides. Which now we see from, pardon?
No, I was just going to say they should be able to jail her on that alone, really. I feel like, well, it would depend once again on the criminal justice system and the charges that they could lay and all of that.
Jurisdiction, And did she break any actual laws? And and you know what? Now we're going into a time. This is what worries me about the Canadian euthanasia thing. Is that once we get into that time, would Michelle Carter then have broken a law? You know what I mean?
That's why I was thinking of her in this topic, where it was like, how does that, you know, square? And then does it become then like a jury's job to decide whether the life that was taken was actually, you know, was it worth living or not? When I'm like, are we really like putting these kinds of, or just in general, the way that people can even suggest it to patients and stuff, where I'm like, at what point do you hear someone's story and say like, you know, maybe, have you thought about nothingness? Like, it's just like, where, at what point? It's just like how.
There is this old book. It's a series of short stories. It's called The King in Yellow. And the first short story is the reputation repairer, or the repairer of reputations.
Oh, okay.
And I don't know. I don't think it's Canada. I think it's London. But it's set in a kind of a dystopian future where they have these suicide booths that you can go to and just end your life. And it's not about that. It's about a mystical guy who can repair people's reputations somehow. But it starts and ends next to these suicide booths. And you know what? I'm going to talk a lot of shit on this channel about the Catholic Church. I'm going to the most you'll ever hear me talk shit is about the Catholic Church. But at the very least, the Catholic Church is a very firm no on suicide.
Yeah.
Under any circumstances, it's no, because maybe when you start getting into nuance and this and that, then you get 10,000 a year or whatever is going to be next year.
Yeah.
I have no idea what's going to be next year.
Yeah. It's good that they have all the data available, at least, even with the like weird, ugly like statistics, but so it'll be able to be, you know, watched. But yeah, it's
if it were like 100, okay, a few hundred, I understand that. But if you look at the chart, I'll probably do a video on this, because did you see the ad, the suicide clothes ad?
Yes. I don't know if I would call it an ad.
Video.
Yeah, it's a video for sure. Because I know people were like, "Oh, it's a commercial for euthanasia," and then I was like clicking around. I'm like, I see. I'm like, I don't know if I would call it an ad, and maybe it's more of a. It almost feels worse to say this, but I feel like maybe it's more of a PSA, which is almost worse.
I can see that.
Because it's like, we just want the public to know that this woman went through this journey, and you know, this is what this is an option.
And her case is weird. Her case is, so she died at 38 or 37 or something like that. But then I looked up the disease, and the average lifespan is 50 to 51. So she's taking about 14 years off her life.
Yeah.
13, 14 years off her life. So it's not so cut and dry. But it did go from you have to have a condition that's going to be fatal and you're going to die soon, to then it's very uncomfortable for you to live this way and you get the approval from the doctor, to next year it's going to be if you have a mental problem that makes it hard for you to live, which, as we just discussed, you could be under some sort of fever, some sort of madness fever, which just seems to just go along online right now. You can catch it anywhere.
Yeah.
And now how do they know if you're in one of these fevers or if you are genuinely, but even so, for mental illness, I don't know. I don't know if I can get behind that.
No, I guess the problem then becomes as well as like the way I can see it, that they're broadening the euthanasia thing is in part, it's giving them an excuse not to look for treatments, improved treatments or even cures, although I'm not sure how much cures scientists are looking for, because I'm not sure how profitable that is. I'm sure they want treatments because, that will keep going. But yeah, it's a great excuse to just be like, oh, well, you've been diagnosed with this, incurable disease. And it's like, oh, so what do people do? Well, usually once you've had it for 20 years, people opt for euthanasia. Like, where are you even like, yeah, no, it's just very scary. It's weird. I'm very much like, it's weird to be living in the country that it feels so like,
y'all
like,
are basically
so progressive. We'll kill you.
You have so much freedom. You have the freedom to die, and the government will help you. Which, like I said, there's some cases where why should you suffer your last 6 months? Why should you? But the numbers are just scary. If it were under 1,000, I would say, okay, fine. But when you get it climbing every single year, especially in the sort of nihilistic world. Yeah. You know what it looked like? I had another friend that used to do fashion films.
Oh, yes. A bit like yeah.
It's like, it's very stylistic. It's the people wearing the clothes. It's just like trying to sell you on like an idea or a mood. And I guess the mood was suicide,
and it didn't even really have that vibe, really. And like, it wasn't a very dark video, like, as you might think this is the mood. That's something I was thinking about with the whole Balenciaga stuff, which great video, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
If people haven't watched that, they should watch it. But I was thinking, as people were getting upset about it, I was like, it's interesting, though. This isn't that far of a step removed from standard fashion editorials, because there are so many editorials that rely on is there a gang rape happening? Oh, I don't know, but it's sexy. And like actually like dead women, where it's like that's the theme, where they're just like, it's crime scenes. And there's a lot of those types of shoots from like, really high fashion houses that have, been continuously going on. So I'm like, it's not even that much of a stretch
No.
when you look at it like in the scale. And then I also kept thinking about those teddy bears, because it's like the bondage teddy bears from One Direction that lured me into my hellscape.
Really? I didn't know about One Direction bondage teddy bears. I thought this was unique to these people. What is that? What is it?
This is called it was like I wrote about it in my first piece about how I fell into the rabbit hole, because I feel like they were very responsible, and they were essentially it was essentially like a mascot. It was a Build-A-Bear, and it was rainbow colored. It was like a rainbow colored. And a fan had thrown it onto stage, and at some point they got a hold of it and did like tape, so there was like a bondage like a bear in bondage, right? And it would show up a bit like on the stage and the side stage photos and stuff like that. Then it disappeared, and then it returned on stage and would have like the elaborate outfits, and would have like a leather hat and the glasses, and is like a leather daddy BDSM guy. And they would have these advanced setups, like now it has an iPhone, and now it has a Rolex. You're like, where are you even getting these things? And it even got a friend. So it was Rainbow Bondage Bear and Sugar Baby Bear. And they had a Twitter account.
Probably has more followers than all of us, but
yeah, no, it doesn't exist anymore, because it was deleted at some point. But, and this is where I'm going to be watching with Twitter, that username became like, it was removed from the equation entirely, because like fans tried to like get the username to make sure no trolls would get it or whatever, and they were like, it doesn't, like, you can't get it, it's been removed from, like, it's not available. So and I saw some tweet, I don't know if it was Elon tweeting or someone else with Twitter, but they were saying something about how there was like a really large amount of usernames that were going to be freed up. And I was like, I wonder if that is one of them. And I've tweeted it like occasionally been like, anyone know how a Twitter handle would become, sort of hidden and not be reusable? And it's like, no one's ever had any ideas. But I'm like, it has to be something to do with like obviously you must have contacted someone. Like you can't somehow, there's no way of hiding a username or like just making it not available without that. But so they had all of that, and they would communicate with fans, which I know sounds ridiculous, but they literally had a phone with a phone number on it, so that fans would message it, and then you could see on the phone, because this was obviously at a concert. So, and then people would take photos of how the messages would pop up like on the phone. So it's like, but you don't know, where is this going to? Some people said that it was like a stagehand or like a crew member. And I'm like, are we really just okay with the crew member like getting, thousands of fangirls to message them for like thinking that it's, an intimate connection with whatever it is? I'm like, to me, that seems insane and very unethical, but whatever.
ethics are very relative, is what we're learning right now. Stuff that I grew up thinking like, oh, this is just the way it's going to be. This is the way our society has structured things. That's just not the case. And it's slowly been declining, at least I guess since the 90s or whatever. I guess it's been declining that far. When you were talking about high fashion and how strange that was, all I could keep thinking of is these people must be essentially miserable. Like they must be projecting their misery out on the world, because there was the Balenciaga shoot where they're in the mud. The One Direction teddy bear, to me, that seems like a little cute. Like,
I mean, no, it was cute. I think what always got me like a bit weirded out is the fact that it was like specifically like a BDSM teddy bear, and it was like known as the bondage bear. And I was always like, and then I was like, oh damn, that's not.
It should never go near kids. That should never go near kids, because you have these twinks. A twink is a skinny gay guy for people out there who don't understand. But if you're like a twink and you're into that unicorn stuff, and you have a bondage bear in your room, and you're 21, you're living your best life, I have no problem with that. Absolutely no problem with that. When it gets to the kids, you're like, what this is. The kid might not have known, but whoever was making that photo shoot up, especially the one with the bag and the court case under the bag.
Yeah, no, all of that was so strange. And it was kind of, I mean, I hate to say that it was like, I don't want to say heartwarming, but at least I was like, okay, people are reacting. Okay, that's kind of, okay, good to know, because who knows anymore,
The bear shoot itself. Okay, the bear shoot itself, that was creepy, but that on its own, I'm like, all right, these are weird high fashion people. High fashion people are weird. They're underfed. They're full of hate and bitterness and jealousy and resentment to anyone who's a week younger, and cocaine and no food to put any of it on. So they're just miserable, miserable people.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. But that bag shoot, there was a bag and it was on top of a court case, which allowed simulated pedophilia or simulated child pornography. And we showed this to one of our friends who works as a prop master, because he was like, it's just a bear, it's no big deal. And we were like, well, what about this one? And he said, there's absolutely no reason. There's absolutely no reason that court case should be there.
No,
that was a signal to somebody.
It's very strange. And I mean, I know that kids shows and movies, they've always leaned into the like, oh, there's a joke for the grown-ups too, and there's like secret messages, but like that's pretty extreme to me. And I've noticed some of that where I'm like, I'm not so sure about this. Like, I know there's like a Trolls episode where they go to a dungeon and it's like, this is a BDSM dungeon. Like, what are you guys doing? This is a kids show. What? And I think I asked some other people as well. I'm like, am I just like losing my mind over this episode? And they were like, it's not great. It's not great. Because it's like they go and it's a guy who's like the dungeon master, and he's, and he's like, oh, and I have to give them all the shocks, and here's this room, and here they're, and I'm like, okay. Interesting
choice.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, okay.
Yeah, I didn't see that episode. But
you mean you're not watching Trolls? Damn it has a subtitle. And I'm like, wait, what is the subtitle? The beat goes on, maybe? Yeah, maybe that's it. Like, I was like, interesting content. Yeah, so good luck with that, you and your future 4-year-old.
Yeah, you know what? I'm very open-minded about what goes on this channel for adults.
Oh, yeah.
For adults. But I really kind of have to question, maybe these people who are making these episodes are themselves like have the Peter Pan thing where they never grew up, or they don't understand the difference between adults and children. Maybe that's what it is. They really don't understand the difference between adults and children. And maybe it's innocent, but then you also have to say, like, look, at a certain age, you just have to know that children are not adults. They're not mini adults. They're not going to get this humor. Some things are not appropriate for them.
Yeah.
It's anything sexual is not appropriate for them.
It's something that I've been observing as well. We're experiencing this as if like I'm on the board of fandom. Like, as I observe,
you might as well be.
It's like, as a member of the board, no. Observing like a lot of the stuff that's going on in fandom is like generational wars, where I would say the Gen Z, like the younger fans, because I'm not gonna lie, a lot of people find fandom and that might be their first exposure to like erotic fiction or art, because and they're sneaking online. And I'm gonna be honest, I think being exposed to that via fandom is probably not as scary as clicking some random Pornhub link, that might you don't even know where that's going. But I think that these young people that are taking this in and then writing for themselves and trying to like figure things out, then they realize that there are a bunch of adults around. And they're like, what the F are these grown-ups doing here? This is a place for us to explore and, you know, talk to each other. And then they're very aggressive towards the adults.
Good.
And well, like, no, but in a way where they're like, you guys shouldn't be here.
Good. They shouldn't be there. They shouldn't be there. What are you talking about?
No. I'm not saying they shouldn't be, like, if you want to control who you're interacting with, yes, do that. Decide who's in your group chat, decide who's in your filters and everything. But like, for example, the biggest fiction site is Archive of Our Own, and that was created by fans who are now, you know, definitely grown-ups. Like they're quite old, and it's like, you know, it's run by them entirely. And the fact that it's run by grown-ups, to them, they're like, that means that this site is a disgusting site, and we need to like get rid of it. Like, it's evil. And you're like, or you can use the filters. Like, there's no, like, because the thing is, there used to be more, and I hate to be the person that's like, we need more gatekeeping, but I think that there's just like, there used to be more spheres because adults created fandom, and it used to be that you could just sort of wall it off, and you had your sphere, and whatever the kids found is stuff that, you know, they went and snuck around and found on their own. That's how I, you know, accidentally stumbled on stuff. It's like, oh, let me just click around. And, you know, you kind of pretended you were older. But now it's just, it's all there. It's all just surface level, which creates these conflicts. And you don't even know how old people are. So I've even seen, because there's like Disney shows that have teens, and then the kids who watch those shows will write fiction. And then people will be like, you're a pedophile because you're writing about, you know, teens. And it's like, but I'm a teen. It's like, what? You can't write about my own group? What's happening?
You should keep it to yourself. I feel a lot of these things are maybe better off kept to yourself.
There has to be, you know, areas, spheres. There has to be gatekeeping, is what I just keep like thinking. And maybe that is I hate to slide into this, but the whole like Twitter drama with like, oh, Grindr should be safe for teenager, like young kids. Where I'm
no,
like,
it shouldn't.
No, it shouldn't. Like, but that's
Grindr
kind of
is
the thing.
for men. For men to do men things, and it's
and
for
grown
them.
up things, like
grown men doing grown men stuff, and that's it. And
exactly.
It's literally none of our business.
No, I know, exactly. I know.
But there is this drive to bring younger and younger people in, and they say, well, we want to teach them properly, which, okay, fine. But then how do you know who's teaching properly and who's a perv? Like, I know I sound like the oldest, most conservative person out there, but I'm just like, you don't understand. There are a certain percentage of people who they don't think like us. They will manipulate you. They want certain things, and you can't tell who they are until often it's too late.
Yes, exactly. I thought I reshared like a sort of film review that I wrote like ages ago, because this movie really sort of is kind of that topic. It's called Sequin in a Blue Room, and it's about this kid who uses a Grindr like app. It's, you know, you can't possibly use any, you know, copyrighted names, but you know, you understand that it's supposed to be a type of Grindr. And you know, and he's using it to have all these hookups and go to all these places, and it kind of shows how he is, you know, he's young, he thinks he has control of this digital domain, you know, it's his playground, but there are actually bad actors out there, and they also know how to work the same. And like, he thinks he's in control, but you know what? No, you aren't, because there's other people around who also know people and who can get it. Like, it's just like a whole thing where I'm like, this is what ends up happening, because a lot of teens are precocious and want to, you know,
they don't understand it's going to affect them.
No, exactly.
They think they're going to move
like,
on.
You're not supposed to make it easier for them. It's like, no, don't do that.
Well, some grown-ass women, or some grown women, they can't deal with dating apps. It's beyond them to deal with it. And they're adults, technically, 25, 26 plus. And they don't understand that, like, there's toxicity in every gender. I'm not going to say, but there's a male level of toxicity that most women don't even understand. They cannot comprehend it until something bad happens to them. And they're like, wow, I didn't even know that was out there. But
that's kind of why I keep tabs sometimes of like guys that I'm like, you got a lot of questionable opinions, but I find it valuable to see, like, because they often are just like straight up like, I think this and that, and you're like, okay, good, I see. Okay, good to be reminded that this exists.
On dating apps or on social media?
Dating apps or in the world. Like when I was on a lot of apps, I was also on Reddit and would check the like Tinder, Bumble, like all of those, just to see like what was going on. And even there, it was very clear that it was like there was very little humanizing of women. Like it was very much like women have it so easy. They could hook up with anyone they wanted, which I think maybe where the femcel thing comes in, because they're just like, you could just hook up with anyone. And you're like, you're telling me that I should just hook up with like a homeless person? Like, well, you could, if you really want sex, you would do it. And it's like, I don't think that's even remotely realistic in any way whatsoever, where it's like, no, the whole point is like, it's not closeness if it's not someone you're not attracted to. It's not, you know.
Men don't understand this. There are, I'm not saying most men, but there are a certain percentage of men that will hook up with anybody. Anybody. When we had that lady in the trailer, living in the trailer on the corner, and she was addicted to drugs and she was a whole mess and she was clearly insane and needed to be institutionalized, but she had Johns coming in and out all day.
Yeah, well, that's the thing too. Like Johns, like they will oftentimes just like, they don't really care, really. Oftentimes it's just like, whatever. I have access. No, it's pretty crazy. And I think too, that's another thing Loveline taught me. There's like a lot of really wild masturbation methods that men have. And then if you start thinking, well, they'll fuck some ground beef between mattresses. So I guess it's not really like, you know, they can't have that high of standards, you know.
Clearly. And it's not all of them. And we're not saying it's all of them.
It's not all of them. No,
it's maybe like 1 in 20, or, you know, it's like, it's a small percentage, but you don't know who that one is until, you know, you find out. And there's nothing, I also don't think there's anything wrong with frequenting prostitutes. I'm very open-minded, but just pick one that can choose whether or not she wants to be a prostitute and whether or not she needs to be a prostitute to get more drugs. Because to me, there's a difference there. In consent. Like, how do you consent when you need to get this drug?
You can't really. But that is, I think isn't that also oftentimes why like pimps will get, like when there's pimps, they'll try to like involve drugs just to be like, this makes it much easier.
Yeah.
Because like, as long as you promise them some drugs, you know, go right ahead. Yeah, it's I feel like I derailed the conversation into lots of sidelines, but
no, it's fantastic. It's fantastic. I love that you're following Loveline. I can't wait to see the article about this because I'm voyeuristic. I want to know, but I don't want to listen to all these Lovelines, you know?
Yeah, I know. It's like, who's gonna listen to all of this? Me. It's fun when it's like, because they have a lot of guests too, so you can listen to like, oh yeah, Duran Duran was on, and you're like, oh, let's listen to this. And one of the I listened through the release of the Pam and Tommy tape and all of that, and they were actually the only two, or Adam Carolla, who is known as the biggest like kind of sleazeball with a man show and Girls on Trampolines, was like, I refuse to watch this. He's like, this is not okay. This was stolen from them. Like, he's like, I don't understand how people can be watching this. And I was like, this is actually really interesting how the actual like moral line can coexist with like, I love all these pornos because they were all, you know,
it's consensual.
I know they're all consensual, but this is like, was it consensual in the moment? Yes, but it was not consented to be, you know, broadcast to the rest of the world. And he was like, no. I'm like, wow, I'm impressed.
I'm surprised and impressed. Yeah. good for
Yeah,
them.
exactly. Exactly. I'm like, oh, I love learning some new things.
I have one last question for you though, before I let you go.
Mm-hmm.
So the new year is coming up.
Oh yeah.
If you had one wish, you get to wish on a genie, like you get your wish. What's your one wish for the new year?
Oh boy. Oh, that's hard. Can I save it for later?
Okay.
My wish is to save my wish for later. No, that's oh yeah. That's, you know what? I would probably be so selfish that I would ask for like 10 more years of health for my little old man rabbit. Because he's very old right now. And I'm like, buddy.
I get
you
it.
know. And there's not a lot of good health care for buns. So that would be my little, because it's like whenever you start thinking of like, you know, all of these companies would not make shows about crimes, I'm like, I'm sure there would be something else they would find to fill it with. Canada will stop doing this. Like, okay, well, maybe I should, no, I would suffer too much if the internet went down. It would probably be better for all of us, but I wouldn't survive. I don't think I would survive. It's where I get my books and you know, email, and also how would I work in my office without the internet? No, please keep the internet alive, but we just need to figure out a more healthy way to relate to it. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
I guess that would be a good wish, just so that everybody has a healthier way to relate to the internet.
It's
your
all
rabbit.
up to them though. We
It
can't make it
is.
happen.
Well, sometimes you just have to show people, because people don't even understand that something is there until you point it out to them. Like if you're looking for your pencil and it's right in front of your face, but someone has to point it out to you.
Oh, you mean like sometimes when I look for my glasses and then I'm like, where the hell are my glasses? Oh my God. Oh, I was wearing them. Oh, and you're like, wow, that happened. You're like, that's how blind we can be. Just stuff. Yeah, true.
Anyway, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me. Yeah.
And you're going to send me that Loveline article?
Yes, I will.
Okay.
I will. I've definitely got to work on it more.
I bet a lot of people watching right now want that article, so no pressure.
I'll do my best. I'll be speedy. Yeah.
All right. Well, you have a good rest of the day and happy holidays.
Thanks. You too. Yeah.
All right. I'm going to stop recording.